Welcome to the Season Initiative podcast. I am your host, Matthew Bailey, and this is episode 3 of our Chaos series. And today, I have a special guest. Him and I are going to be talking about competitive 40K, specifically for the Chaos faction. This is our Chaos series. As you know, I've said in the past, I'm a competitive player, so it's just going to be me today with our guest. Today, our special guest with us is one of the top 40K players in the country, a Chaos expert, and a tie extraordinaire, TJ Lanigan. Welcome, TJ. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. So we're just going to talk about a couple lists, your list, and then another Chaos list that does well competitively, well, quote unquote, and then how Chaos fares in the meta, and then a couple other questions later on.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get started, man.
Cool. So overall, the meta before the pandemic was particularly Space Marines doing really well, and then I see you or Jim Vessel doing well with Chaos. I think there's another name out there. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. I did okay at a GT with Chaos. There was actually quite a few Chaos players up in the top 15 at that GT, if I remember correctly, at the boys. But yeah, so my question is, how does Chaos fare in the meta right now?
Well, I mean, we're doing well. I would say Chaos is probably top 3. Unfortunately, we're not as diverse as a couple of the other armies that have a lot of the different builds or different options available. We have some very rigid lists if you're trying to play top competitive. Now, if you're not trying to go top, there are definitely some other lists that you could play. You could easily go 4-1 or 5-1 with a lot of lists. But if you're looking for the top of the top, go the best record you could go, then we're looking at basically 2 list constructions. You've got your Triple or Skulls list, and you've got your Possessed list. So 2 very different architect lists. And then with the Possessed, based on the god that you're going to make those, or the mark you're going to make those, which god they have their allegiance to, is going to really make the list function differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I know, pre-LVO, the Nurgle Possessed was very popular. I played them as well. I had a lot of fun with them. Possessed I'm so glad they got better as the edition went forward, because man, they have been sitting on my bench for a very long time. But and then now I see that you're running Slaanesh Possessed Bomb, and you run 2 15 or 18 man units, something like that.
Yeah, so 15 was something I tried out. And not that the 15s are bad. The 15s are great, but honestly, after playing a couple games, I couldn't figure out what to do with the additional points. So I went with 218. I ran some Terminators at a GT that I went to in Mythos, which was right before everything went to hell in a handbasket. So we kind of we tried it out. I ran some Terminators, and I felt like they really just didn't do anything. Honestly, they either died early on or they stayed alive the whole game, but they didn't actually contribute to the list or the table board presence at all. So I kind of moved to 2 bigger squads, and then took the points that I had left over and added an extra caster, which brings a lot of versatility to the list as well. So
great. What kind of Terminators were they, actually? Curious.
So they were 1,000 Suns. So basically, with the list, initially it was running a Alpha Legion detachment, and then you've got your Supreme Command detachment of Slaanesh, and then you've got a detachment, Supreme Command detachment of 1,000 Suns. So really the only way to a lot of people at the time were telling me, the Rubric Marines are really good. You should try Rubrics. And I'm like, well, the only way to make Rubrics fit at all with all the new strats is to take them as Terminators, unless I want to take another 20 cultists and put them on the table. And I don't like to take units that don't serve any function at all other than unlocking CP. So I ultimately went with the Terminators, and they, like I said, they just didn't really do too much.
Gotcha. Okay. So you ran the 2 squads of possessed with all the Slanesh stuff, and then the old list was the Nurgle one. What's the difference really between the Nurgle and then the Slanesh possessed?
Man, what a different list. It just plays completely different. So the Slanesh list is all about putting pressure early on, really pushing the boundaries of your opponent's deployment zones, kind of prodding, and finding the kinks in their armor to really get a dominant board presence. The Nurgle one is more about guarding the middle of the table with kind of a unit that is designed to stay where it's at in the middle of the table with a lot of negative modifiers and, kind of force your opponent to make some bad decisions as you rack up the points. Really, at -3, your opponent, and maybe even behind line of sight, your opponent is kind of forced to go, well, if I don't go into the middle of the table, I'm probably going to lose this game. I should probably figure out how to get in there, which kind of forces them to make some bad decisions because they're pressing up against, we've got the mortars going off, we've got the psychic damage, hurting them. And then, when they get close, you finally hit them with a unit that just usually kills whatever it touches. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And the Slanesh possessed, they have a very high threat range, if I'm not mistaken, I believe.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we talked about, when we were talking about before, where they're kind of there to like poke and prod your opponent's defenses. I mean, the unit can move 9 inches before the game begins. Then they move 7 inches for a movement. Then they get a D6 run. So, you get your maximum. You get your maximum threat range right there, basically. You've got 13 inches plus 9 inches. So, you're 22 away, right? And then you get another 7-inch move. So now you're 29 away plus D6. You can go up to 35 inches away. So basically, that's super strong. 35 inches and then a 2d6 charge. So really your threat range is somewhere around 47 inches. That's kind of, like I said, what that list is designed to do. It's designed to go, you left this spot unguarded, or you left this character unguarded, or this is a really easy unit for me to wrap and kind of stay and put that pressure on you where maybe your shooting isn't as your melee isn't as powerful as your shooting. So I'm going to get you into combat and we're going to stay there. And then I'm going to just kind of move through units. And then maybe they expend a lot of resources putting the rest of their army, again, out of protection. And that's kind of where that second unit comes in. So.
Gotcha. Okay. There's actually one model. There's one model I love I believe it's in both lists. The Epitome, right?
So the Epitome is only in the Slanesh list. For the Nurgle list, you can summon it in. The Nurgle list is kind of more of a toolbox list. It has about 205 points, I think, or something like that for summoning. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to basically summon what you need. So there were games where I summoned in another Demon Prince like Nurgle for some extra added board presence. He also does really well in like the Orc matchup where they really struggle to kill an 8-wound model that has 3-up armor. It's just not something they do often, and a Feel No Pain. It's just not something they can really easily remove from the table. And then in other matchups, like when I played the Chaos Mirror match at LVO, round 6, I didn't need to summon anything except stuff that was difficult to remove from the table that caused my opponent to basically have to screen out. So in that matchup, I just took a whole bunch of Beasts of Nurgle. So we ended up summoning like 6 Beasts of Nurgle, and we basically just screened out so I could sit in the middle of the table. And his obliterators really didn't have anywhere to go, which made the game ultimately end in my favor. So there's just a couple of different, and then obviously the contorted epitome helps out with that particular in certain particular matchups as well, when your opponent's not expecting a model that ties things up, and then you summon it in, all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I've really bunched up, or I put this unit way, way far out, and now he's going to wrap this unit on me, and that's going to really cause me to have some problems. So
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. You definitely know your stuff when it comes to all this, for sure. I know that one of your things that you say usually about, like, when you pick up an army in general, not just chaos, is practice, 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 to get so you can be as good as you can be with that list. That's how I'm assuming that's how you got so good with that.
yeah, I mean, it's something I preach as often as I possibly can. Now, obviously, there are some changes coming soon, so
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. But I've told everyone that I know I'm going to hit this as hard as I hit everything else. So I'm going to practice, practice, practice. I'm going to find every little, list change that I can possibly make my list. I'm going to take all the new stuff into consideration, and I'm going to come back with this new edition, hopefully even harder than, 8th edition, which I did very well in 8th edition. But I mean, practice is the key to all that. I was just talking earlier today when I was doing one of my clinics for Chaos, basically explaining, like, one of my buddies, Sam, he plays Death Guard, mono Death Guard, not the most competitive list, but he was able to bring it to a whole bunch of events and do very, very well. So, I mean, like, it's that kind of dedication to the list and to knowing what your army does that you're able to overcome lists. Like, I saw him beat Iron Hands when they were super big back in November. That couldn't have been done unless you knew exactly what was going on, exactly how to beat that army. So it's very important that you know exactly what your list does, because then you know exactly how to hit your opponent's weaknesses, because you know how to kind of protect yours and deal damage back to them. So
I definitely agree. That's how I practice so much with my discordant lists. I ran the 3 Lord Discordants, and I ran Possessed as well. And I got 12th at Du Bois, but I just practiced for months getting ready for that GT, because I don't really go to a lot of GTs, but I wanted to do well. And definitely practicing and knowing everything, because I played 2 Iron Hands players, and I beat one barely, and then I tied the other just because of the what was it? The contorted epitome. That model is amazing. It saved me a lot of game. It saved me a couple times for sure.
yeah, I mean, it's super important, especially when you have, if your list is right there, but maybe not the most competitive. That's the difference between you winning and losing that game. Is like, well, I know my army in and out, and you just got a new book that came out a month ago.
Yeah.
I've been playing this list for a couple months. I know exactly how to play this list. You've been playing your list for maybe a month. So that difference level in practice versus skill is going to definitely show over, somebody who just picked up the army, put it together yesterday. So
Yep, absolutely. So that's a lot of information about the Possessed list, and I love it. That's the information that's definitely going to stay with me. But the other list is the Lord of Skulls list. And I know it's the 3 Lord of Skulls, but I'm not sure what else is in that list, actually, because I've never actually seen it or played it.
So the list plays, very much that aggressive part that we were talking about for the Slanesh list. So basically, you've got your 3 Lord of Skulls, and then you take a Demon Prince. So you take the Demon Prince from Chaos, and he takes the Crimson Crown. What that allows you to do is get some additional hits. You get to roll additional hits when you wound things on a 6+. So there you've got that going on for you. Then you take a Disco Lord as well. That gives you that +1 to hit. So now your whole army is basically hitting on 2s and re-rolling 1s with the Demon Prince.
Yep.
So you've got a very strong core right there that basically does additional things. when you splash damage. So it's a whole bunch of different buffs on those 2 units. Then you take a Master Possession, so you're rerolling ones to hit, ones to wound. That's super strong,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a very strong list, but it's very centralized with those 3 models. So you got your Disco Lord, and then you take the Demon Prince, Master Possession, and that's like most of your points right there. Is really those key models are really the big parts in your list for your points. And then you have some small troops and stuff like that to grab objectives, but that's mostly where all your points are going to lie, because I mean those guys are not cheap to put on the table. They definitely require a lot of points. So
okay, very informative.
I mean, it's powerful. If you go first, that list has can deal with a lot of its hard counters by just going first, because the amount of shots that you'll put out, 12 shots often becomes 16 shots. You get some buffs that you get when you hit on 6s, you do additional hits. And then there's like I said, the other relic, which is when you wound on 6s, you also get additional hits as well. So you're basically getting double explosions. So I mean, you're doing a lot of additional hits that do a lot of damage. Plus, they're very good in melee as well. Their big problem is that they don't have a lot of protection if they don't go first. That's an issue. Their second issue, they have really 3. Their second issue is terrain. They're a big model. It's difficult for them to fit into certain gaps and things like that. So that becomes an issue when you play on ITC tables and things like that have a good terrain structure, because they just can't get to where they need to get to. And their last problem is, I guess, kind of coupled with the second problem, but they don't have the ability to shoot at things that they can't see. So that's a huge issue for them, because basically if the terrain is good or they're able to hide stuff, they just kind of can't really do much. So that's a major issue with them, where they just don't have that ability to negate a lot of that stuff. Disco Lord can't really go and get stuff in cover as well, in ruins. So that's a problem. And then your Demon Prince kind of has to stay pretty close, because he buffs them as well as the Disco Lord. So you want them all to be close to each other, but if you can't get to the things you need to get to, basically objectives and things like that, it's going to be a rough game for you. And that kind of couples with their last weakness, where it's difficult for them to hold things that have big objectives. So like missions that have 6 objectives or things like that, they're just not going to be able to hold that many objectives, because you don't have a lot of little units around. So going first is a big issue with them, because you could probably, depending on what the list is, you can take out one almost no problem. They only have a 5-up pinball. And that issue makes it rough, because if they take that out, plus they take most of your objective grabbing screens, that's going to be really difficult for you to really hold stuff. So you could kill half or 75 to 80% of their army, and it's not going to matter, because the whole game they've been holding more than you, and they've been getting maybe the bonus point for a couple turns. So that's a difficult game to swing, and picking up secondaries is pretty easy against them too, because they are vehicles. So you can get, the vehicle keyword. Every 10 wounds you get a point for ITC anyway. And then they have a lot of characters, which are easy to pick up, because you can get in there. There's not really a lot of screens that's blocking characters, and you have Lord of Skulls, but like if you get in there, get your victory point or your win conditions, then it doesn't really matter if you give up a couple as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's a lot of information. I've never seen that list or seen it in action.
It's fun. It's definitely very fun.
It looks like a lot of fun.
Running your toys, and that's always a fun thing to do. I think honestly, if I had to rate the list, I would say the Possessed definitely is top tier. for Chaos. It's probably the best we have to offer. I would then say that the Lord of Skulls list is a list that you could go 6-0, probably 5-0, probably not 6-0. I think you just have too many hard matchups.
Yeah.
But more oftentimes than not, I think you go 4-1 or 5-1 with that list. If you look at LVO, with that list, was a prominent example. None of their lists went 6-0. Most of them they had one loss because you hit that hard ceiling, that hard matchup. You don't go first, or you hit the wrong objective, maybe the 3 objective one, the 5 objective one, where you're just not able to really utilize what the list is there for. It's really there to go first, push into your opponent's field with 3 big models that shoot a whole bunch of guns and keep the pressure on.
Yeah. All right. Wow. So I hope everybody takes a lot of whoever's starting Chaos or is playing Chaos and they want to go competitive. I hope you take a lot of that information and really soak that in. And remember, like TJ preaches a lot, practice, 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 so you can get your list down. So speaking of, you said it earlier, the Possess is what we have best to offer. Tomorrow, on March 29th, 2020, we are getting the sneak peek at the demon side of Engine War. And so one of my friends, you know him too, and it was a question I actually kind of wanted to ask as well. He wants to know why you picking up corn demons?
I mean, they're going to get some new strats. So on Sunday, when they put out the releases for all the week, they put in there that they're going to put all the stuff from Wrath and Rapture. The stuff in Wrath and Rapture is Blood Crushers. That's definitely something in the unit. Bloodletters are also in there as well. If you look at the content page for what's going to be on the book, that page that Games Workshop leaked. This is not a leak. I did not get any special information. It is literally something they sent out on Sunday. They're in that book. Now, whether or not they're going to be a port directly from Wrath and Rapture and they're not going to have any new rules, that remains to be seen. However, they will get new stratagems. And we're hoping the stratagems are going to be good. Corn is also an army that I've never run. So it's an army I don't own a lot of because their rules have always been very lackluster.
Yeah, I agree with that. I besides the Bloodletter bomb, that was a thing quite some time ago.
So I'd like to own those guys. I'd like to get some of those guys painted up and ready to play. Plus, 9th edition is coming, which I think we're going to. But I'm excited to see demons return to their former glory. Being able to run demons as a mono codex would be fantastic. I'd love to see that. So
me too. I've got so many Zinj demons. I've got quite a bit of. I've got some Slash demons, and I've got 3 Bloodthirsters sitting on my bench with Karanak and a few others. And I really want to see them get a lot of love through Engine War. That'd be really nice.
Yeah, and Zuber can mind his business, man, because they're coming for him, bro. If I see him across the table, it's lights out.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Zuber wanted to know for sure. So we're pretty much got what we have about the Chaos meta in the meta. Excuse me. And you went over those lists pretty well. Like, there's a lot of information. I hope everyone soaks it in. Engine War coming out. Pre-orders are, I believe, Saturday, the 30th.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very excited.
I'm super excited. I also have AdMech, so that kind of is a plus as well. We'll see for how long. Those Necrons look pretty nice. So we do know that 9th edition is upon us. And judging from what they released so far in that video of the 9 things, that are good about ninth edition that GW put out. What is really like your reaction to all this? Like, it's coming up really soon, hopefully.
Yeah, so I mean, from everything we've seen so far, it looks like it's going to be July.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really excited for the new stuff. Like I said, what I'm most excited about is people being able to run their army the way they want to run it.
Yeah.
That's definitely a concern that a lot of people have currently. Is just not as competitive as they would have liked it. So I'd like to see them, basically make it so that you don't have to run all these crazy taxes just to make your models work. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see that. I'd like them to clean up the terrain rules right now. I feel like 8th edition, that was one of the big things they were lacking in. So it looks like they fixed that. And it looks like they brought back reserving units, spending command points to put units in reserve. I'm really excited about that because I did just talk about this on one of my clinics for today. But basically, like, Magnus right now, if you start him on the table and you don't go first, he dies.
Yep.
9 times out of 10, I would say your opponent has enough firepower where he dies. If you manage to go first, you're fine. But if you don't, he dies. Mortarion is 470 points that I need to spend points on bodyguards just to make him work. I don't want to have to do that for a model that is supposed to be one of the toughest. He's a patron of Nurgle. He's supposed to be super resilient, and yet I have to take bodyguards just to make him not die on turn 1. So that's kind of rough. Being able to put them in reserve would make both of them 100 times more playable.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I agree.
A whole bunch of units that are more playable. You've got double possess bomb with Slaanesh right now. If I was able to put one unit of Slaanesh into reserve so that I could only have to conceal one unit, that would be super powerful. And same thing with demons. There's a lot of demons right now can go in reserve. That's great, but a lot of chaos stuff can't go in reserve unless they have the special keyword or they can deep strike. But like a unit of, just think of it like this. A unit of right now Noise Marines, the only way they can go in reserve is if I put it in a drop pod. Or not a drop pod. Well, there is a drop pod, but if I put it in the drill or I put it in a rhino. But if I could just start 20 man on the table, that would make the game a lot more interesting for me. And, they mentioned that the later you wait, the more deployment options you get. Great. I'm excited, man. I can't wait. So I'm excited about that stuff, and I'm excited for them to look at how terrain kind of interacts with these negative modifiers, because initially that is a scary thing. When you go from armies that are super dependent on negative modifiers to, well, we're not giving you any negative modifiers almost at all. Because if you're thinking that a -1 modifier is something that you're going to be able to utilize in game mode, well, then you probably haven't been playing competitively the last couple of months, because no army really can't deal with at least getting 1+1. So if you're -1 at most, then they can make it +1. Then it means you're hitting on normal ballistic skill. So I don't know any army that can't do that. Even orcs that hit on 6s, even with a negative modifier, basically negate your negative modifier anyway, and they can DACA to basically ignore an additional negative modifier.
Yep.
Or add +1 to their hit modifier. So they don't care at all. And every other army that I know about can at least get +1 for something. So
through anything really.
Through stratagems or a character or a prayer or a spell or anything. So it'll be very interesting to see how that affects the meta, and what kind of units kind of surface to the top, as well as troops not being needed. They'll be needed. I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, when Games Workshop says that they're not going to be needed, that just means that you won't have to take them to play the game. That doesn't mean that you're not going to need them on the table. I have a strange suspicion that they're going to make it so that troops are now the only thing that can hold objectives. So I would not be surprised in the slightest if that is the new way they want to do objectives, where it's like if you don't have troops, you're not holding stuff. So I think people initially are like, wow, I can't wait to play all my like cool stuff. But I really think that what that really means is they're going to get to run whatever they want, but they better have some troops in their list or they're going to suffer.
Yeah, for sure. I also saw, and I was talking to a buddy of mine that also plays Chaos, and they name dropped stuff about the morale phase, and they name dropped Night Lords. And I'm really hoping that they get some love. I like the Night Lords, and I'm hoping that the other legions can be playable as well.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely they talked about it in their Q&A on Tuesday. They said, we don't want to make it feel like it's all or nothing. The interesting part about them saying that is right now they say it's all or nothing. I like the way it works right now. However, not every army actually obeys the rules for morale. Like if everybody used the same scale, whatever your morale is, and then based on the number, like whatever your morale, you start the turn with, so 10 being the most, except for orcs, which they're a weird example. But let's say your morale starts at 10. If you lose 7 guys, you're testing, on a 4+, you lose models.
Yeah,
that's fine. However, there are so many different instances where morale just doesn't matter. You have Space Marines, which get to re-roll it. You have relics that ignore modify, like relics like Guard, where you only roll 2 dice and you take the lowest, or you roll a D3 and you only lose that many models. You have Orcs where you lose D3. You have factions that have entire legions or detachments that ignore morale, period. And then you have Tyranids, which ignore morale. So like there's so many things that get or circumvent the morale phase that like if everybody followed the morale for 8th edition, I think we would have a really like a brutal game where things would die very quickly. But since we don't, now they're like, well, we're going to change it around. We're going to make it so it's not all or nothing. So I'm very interested to see what that means because like, again, like you said, Night Lords have such a great mechanic.
Yeah.
Up to -3. But then again, like I just said, take any of the armies I just mentioned and they do nothing, right? You play against Tyranids, they have a 30-man squad of Gaunts. Well, you kill 20 Gaunts and they're fearless. They don't care. Okay, let's switch it. You kill Orcs, you kill 20 models, but they're morale 30. So even if you make them a -3 modifier, they're still morale 30 and they've only lost basically 23 models. So they still can't fail morale. So, like, it just doesn't matter for a lot of armies that just don't care. Or you just spend 2 CP and then it doesn't matter. So, Night Lords, you set up this cool trick and you're like, yeah, make you -3 and, like, I do all this stuff. I can't wait to see all these models running. They're like, okay, well, I'll just spend 2 CP instead. And you're like, great.
Yeah.
That's
all that for naught. Yeah.
Yep. All that for naught. So.
Well, cool. Well, I'm really hoping that 9th edition is gonna be great for everyone. I'm hoping a lot of things get balanced out, like you said earlier, with the terrain stuff. That'd be really nice because I know a lot of.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys will have me back on here when 9th edition comes out. We can talk about all the new cool stuff.
Yeah,
as soon as definitely get some love.
Yep, because Engine War comes out, and then War of the Spider with Fabius Bile.
With his brand new faction. We're going to get a brand new faction.
Yeah. I'm super excited about that. I love Fabius Bile.
Yeah, man. He's great. I really like the way he plays. So I'm really hoping they don't change his mechanic and he still buffs units. So, yeah.
Yeah, so when 9th edition hits and then we get all this new Chaos stuff, we can really talk about what Chaos is going to be going forward.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Great. So am I. And I bet a lot of players are, a lot of competitive players, and a lot of non-competitive players. And I also see a lot of people that play AOS or play other tabletop games. 9th edition's coming out. What a good time for me to jump into this edition, especially with all the new models that they're going to be releasing for that, like Necrons and Space Marines. And then, like we said, the new Chaos faction for Fabius. That'd be really nice. And I'm hoping everything goes well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely, man. I'm really, really hoping everything goes well and we have a nice addition. I mean, with the amount of new testers that they've had, and people I know and people that everybody knows, like Mike Brandt working on things and stuff like that. It's really going to be good. They're really going to make it good for everybody. Crusade's going to be nice for everybody, for casual players, people who want to play in leagues. It kind of leads itself to playing a whole bunch of different games and different play styles, and then command points being fixed so that you don't have to worry about it. That will be cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. Well, that really wraps up what we just talked about. We talked about the chaos competitive stuff, how they fare, the two lists that we really went over, what TJ went over really, and we talked about Engine War a little bit. Hopefully, all this new stuff comes around, and don't forget, Zuber, mind your business.
Mind your business, Zuber. I better not see you on the table. I haven't seen Zuber competitively play a game. I've never been across the table from him, but if I see him,
he is a fantastic person to play against. Probably one of my favorites.
Cool off the table. So
yeah, him and I. There's one game that we had at a charity event that is still my favorite game of 40K I've ever played, against his what was it? Index orcs. His Index orcs.
Okay. Yeah, those are the best kinds of stories, man. When people are like, "This is the best game I ever played," or "Really enjoy this person." That's kind of stuff we need in the hobby. More people who are that enjoyable to play. I think that every game should be like that. It's just a game with little plastic figurines. Like, no need to get super crazy about stuff or get super upset when things don't go your way. There is luck in this game, and random things happen, so don't just take it easy, man. Relax, have a good time. This is, for most people, this is when they do these tournaments. That's a vacation time. They're time away from family, time away from work, so
absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping that, I don't know if it will happen, but I'm really hoping Nova happens. That'd be really nice to go to, get away.
I think we're gonna hear about that pretty soon.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
It will, and it ultimately will depend on, obviously, what's going on with COVID-19 and stuff like that. But it's also going to depend on, like, when 9th edition releases, what because depending on when that gets released, that might definitely change some things as well. So
definitely, yeah. Well, TJ, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate all the info that you are giving me and the listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Anytime.
Yeah, no problem. And as soon as 9th comes out and we get all the new stuff for Chaos and other things, we can talk about the new stuff and Fabius Bio, hopefully. That'd be really, I'm just really excited for all that. And the Demon Codex, well, not Codex, but hopefully we can just play demons as their own.
Yeah, and I hope it's enough where it's the whole Codex. That would just be great. Just a whole bunch of stuff.
All right. Well, TJ, thank you again. Well, that is the 3rd episode of the Chaos segment that we have going on. And everybody just stay safe during this COVID-19. Stay safe. Just hug your loved ones tighter during this whole time, because you never know what's going to happen. Again, stay safe. Wash your hands. All that. Hopefully we get to see some human interaction real soon. Everybody, have a great night. Stay safe.
This has been a 5th Trooper production.